YouTube, I'm back, and yes, we're gonna have more Duel Links content by the end of this week. I'm sorry, I've been in Master Duel. I've been playing a lot of Voiceless Voice, but we are coming back to Duel Links. We got a lot more COD climbs. I'd like to do a Striker one, and I'd also like to do an Unchained one as well. So more COD climbs coming very, very soon. Anyway, let's talk about Sky Striker. So Sky Striker had a recent update giving us Engage and Kinda as accessible cards without the skill. Yes, it does make the deck more expensive, but overall, it is really, really strong right now. It is definitely top tier, and it's a tier 1, tier 2 deck in my opinion. Probably tier 2, tier 1's a little bit too much, but definitely tier 2. Do I recommend you invest in it? I would say if you already have the cards already, do so. If you don't, then it's going to be very expensive to build, because there are a ton of URs that you need for the deck. With that being said, can you build this deck with 2 Ray and with 2 Shizuku? Yes, you can get away with 2 and 2, and the deck is perfectly accessible. Alright, let's go over the deck. First, we're playing 3 copies of Ray. So again, I'm going to go over this briefly. I also have a video on this that I posted before. I will leave it in the description below, so if you want to learn how to play Sky Striker, there's a perfectly good video for you to watch as well, if you want one in addition to this, but this is basically going to go over everything, so you probably won't really need to rewatch that video, but you can if you wanted to. Okay, so Sky Striker Ace Ray. So Ray has an effect that basically she can a quick effect tag into any Sky Striker Ace out of the extra deck. Now that's perfect for being used in combo with your Area 0 or your Multiroll. When we get to them, I'll explain how. But basically, Ray can do that. Also, when your Sky Striker Ace Link monster leaves the field, she can special summon herself in the grave, then use that same quick effect to tag into another Link monster, say your Kinda, and then prevent your opponent from attacking. Or if your opponent is out of attacks and swings in and doesn't realize it and has no more attacks left, you can also tag into Shizuku and get a search in the end phase. So very, very good. Then we have the most powerful spell in the deck, Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. Yes, you want 3 of this. This is in a mini box. You guys really want to have 3 of this because, I mean, obviously, one of the best spells in the game. And I don't mean just in Duel Links, I mean overall. This is one of the most powerful spells ever created. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone. So if you've never played Sky Striker before, I'm going to explain this to you. If you've never played Sky Striker in your life, maybe it's your first time playing the deck. The whole deck focuses around you summoning a bunch of Link monsters, as well as using a bunch of spells to kind of rush your opponent down with, or control your opponent with. And the whole idea of this is you have to have no monsters in your main monster zone in order to use those spells. That's why sometimes people will counter you with like kaijus and stuff like that, in order to force you to have monsters in your main monster zone so you can't play your spells and such. So keep in mind, I'm not going to go over 100 times that you need monsters in your main monster zone, because that's irrelevant for every spell that I'm about to tell you. So that's, well, not irrelevant. That's pretty much the standard for every spell I'm going to tell you. Wrong choice of word. Okay, so Engage. If you have no monsters in your main monster zone, you can add 1 Sky Striker card from deck to hand. Then if you have 3 or more spells in your grave, draw a card. Now again, the same rhythm goes for the last line. If you have 3 or more spells in the grave, you get to generally perform an additional effect on like 90% of the Sky Striker cards that I'm going to go over. So Engage draws you a card if you have 3 or more spells in the grave. Also adds any Sky Striker card from deck to hand. This is not a hard once per turn, so you can keep stacking Engage. That's where it gets really insane. So like, it's basically Pot of Greed on activation. It's a +1. And if you keep stacking said Pot of Greed and activating it over and over, yeah, it can get out of hand. You're talking +2, +3, etc, etc. So really, really good. Okay, so Sky Striker Mobilize Engage. That's an absolutely fantastic card. You definitely run 3 of them. Widow Anchor is a 2 of. Get 2 of the bundle. You need it to play this deck. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, again, pretty standard. Target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and then, like I said, if you have 3 or more spells in the grave, take their monster. So you can target this, negate the effects, then you can snatch the other monster if you want to. Keep in mind, if you're going first, you may not want to take their monster, unless you know it's going to end their play. The reason being is, if you do that, then you're going to have a monster in the main monster zone, and then you can't activate something like a Shark Cannons, or Hornet Drones. Well, we don't have Hornet Drones, never mind. Okay, but you can't activate your Shark Cannons or activate your Eagle Booster. So keep that in mind. So those are cards you may want to activate. So you may just want to negate 1 of their effects and not take it. And if you have a second Widow Anchor, you won't be able to activate that either once you steal their monster. Now, another important note that you guys need to know about Widow Anchor is Widow Anchor has to negate that monster's effects in order to steal it. So, for example, if your opponent negates themselves, so let's say they use something like Fiendish Chain and they chain it to their monster and negate its effects, then Widow Anchor won't steal because Widow Anchor needs to negate the effects in order to steal it. And also, like I said, you actually, in order to activate, you cannot. Oh, I'm tripping myself up. If a monster is already negated, you can't use Widow Anchor on it. Widow Anchor cannot negate a monster who's already negated. So if they summon something back from the graveyard and it already has its effects negated, you can't negate and steal something that's already been negated. So keep that in mind. Alright? So, that's very important. Next, we run 2 copies of Multiroll. So Multiroll has a couple of different effects. Once per turn, you can target any other card you control on the field side of the grave. While that may sound like a terrible downside at first, it'll make more sense as I go over Area 0 and talk about its other uses. Now, Multiroll has a few different purposes in that point. So first of all, if you have like a set, let's say you have like a set Widow Anchor. And this is very important to have it set. You gotta understand how this works. You can activate Multiroll, and then since Widow Anchor is a quick play spell, you can chain that Widow Anchor, and then steal the opponent's monster, negate it, do whatever, and then Multiroll will resolve, and then for the rest of the turn, your spell cards will not be able to be responded to. And that gets me this Multiroll second effect. Once this card fully resolves, spell cards and the activation of spells cannot be responded to. So what does that mean? So that means that if your opponent allows this to go through, you're going to have priority on every spell card you activate, and they can't respond to it. So if you go to activate like an Afterburners, they can't respond to that, so you can just start blowing out their board, or if you activate a Jamming Waves, you can start blowing out their board, and it starts getting really, really bad for them. Also, Multiroll has a third effect. While it's on the field, you can set, in the end phase, you can set as many Sky Striker spells from your graveyard equal to the amount of spells you activated that turn. And that's generic spells. So if you play this in Master Duel, cards like Upstart Goblin, Instant Void, Tomb Table Contents, those would apply as well to Sky Striker spells being active. If you ever played something like Spellbook of Judgment, it works the same way. If you played in TCG at that time, but if you haven't, if you activate any spell and prior to this, you will also count to your Multiroll. And Multiroll can also be swapped out with Shizuku. They fixed it. In the previous video I discussed, it couldn't be, so that's why I'd rather you focus on this video, because otherwise that might confuse you. In the updated video, they did allow you to change chain order in Duel Links. So you can wait out Multiroll now and activate Shizuku in the end phase, negate yourself with some spell, and then set your cards off Multiroll. Okay, you didn't have to do the dance around and activate those spells before Multiroll, so that way the first spell you would activate would be in the end phase to set. You could activate spells prior and set those spells as well. So it changed how Multiroll works, so keep that in mind. But Multiroll is very powerful. So I know that's a lot to absorb, but basically I want you to remember these 3 things. You can send the card in your field to the graveyard. Your spells cannot be responded to if your opponent allows it to go through. And during the end phase, set as many spells from your graveyard as spell cards you have activated spell cards you've activated after Multiroll's activation, not the ones previous to it. Okay? So keep that in mind. Next, Jamming Waves. Jamming Waves is one of the most powerful spell cards in the deck as well. As Jamming Waves, if you control no monsters in your main monster zone, can target a set back row on your opponent's field, destroy it. Then, if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, destroy 1 monster in the field. Keep in mind that is non-target. So one thing that your opponent may do is if they're like a 5-head, they may say, hey, I'm not going to set my back row because then you can't non-target destroy my monster. If I had something like a Saber Dancer on the field, I say, okay, this cannot be targeted. So since most of the Sky Striker cards target, I'm not going to set back row. And then I play around Jamming Waves because now they can't destroy my monster because they have nothing to destroy. But that's where they'd be wrong, because you can 5-head them and make a really smart play and destroy your own set cards. So if you have 3 or more spells in your graveyard, destroy one of your own sets, then you can pop their non-targetable monster, and then bam, then you add it. Again, the same can go for Afterburners if they have like a non-targetable set card, and like a non-targetable like I don't know, spell or trap that can't be targeted, and then you pop your own monster to do that. So keep these things in mind. These are like 5 hit plays you need to think about in Sky Strike. And this is a normal spell. Like I said, the only quick play we've gone over so far is Widow Anchor, which can be used on both players' turns. Next is Vector Blast. Vector Blast is a new card that's in Sky Striker, and it's very, very good. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, each player sends the top 2 cards in the deck to the grave, or as many possible if less than 2. Then if you send at least 1 spell to the graveyard, and you have 3 or more spells in the graveyard, you can shuffle all monsters your opponent controls in their EMZ into the deck. So this is very good. A lot of your times your opponent will not recognize this, and they'll just generically summon to the EMZ. If they put like, I don't know, they leave like Construct on the field and choose not to send it, or they like playing against Infinite Nobles and they throw Charles in the EMZ, then you get to activate Vector Blast or have a Link monster there. And then Vector Blast will trigger, send the top 2, and if you have 3 spells in the grave, then that's a free removal for you. And keep in mind, it shuffles it in the deck, so anything that would trigger sending to the graveyard will not. And this is also just generically good to put more spells in the graveyard. So very, very good just to like put spells in the graveyard in general. Now next, we're going to go over the main card in the deck, which is Area 0, one of the main cards. Area 0 works in tandem with Multiroll, and this is the last thing I need to tell you with Multiroll. And we'll go over it once we get to it. Basically, you can target one other card you control, excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, add 1 excavated Sky Striker card from deck to hand. Second effect, if this card is sent from field to graveyard, special summon 1 Sky Striker ace out of the deck. Now, how are you sending this to the graveyard? Bam! Multi-roll. Like I said, target 1 other card in the field and send it to the graveyard. Now, does it make a bit of sense? Now, if you activate your multi-roll to send your Area 0, then you can summon a Ray out of the deck. So multi-roll sends Area 0, summon the Ray, and then that's a consistency way to get to your Sky Striker ace. Now, another important thing is it targets that card. Now, both Area 0 and Multi-Roll target the card. So, like I said, with Widow Anchor, or Shark Cannons, or not Orange, I keep saying it, Eagle Booster, you can change to that. Because it targets the card, so you can activate the targeted card in response. Then, said card will be sent to the graveyard. So you can do the same with Area 0, and target a Widow Anchor, or one of your spells that are already set. It's very important they have to be already set, because you won't be able to target a card in your hand. And then target one of your cards that are already set, and then perform their actions to excavate the top 3, or become unresponsive to spells. But what's also important is this works also with Ray, because Ray can quick effect tag out. So if you target Ray with Area 0, which is one of the big plays you're going to do, you can tag out your Ray, then excavate the top 3. Okay? Now, keep in mind, if you do tag out Ray into a Sky Striker ace, that monster cannot be used with Monster Reborn or brought back from the graveyard. And that's very important because one of the common plays you would do in the mirror is use Shark Cannons to revive back Ray. But you can't do that because their Kagari will not be able to reborn if you summon it properly. So that could be a advanced play in the mirror. Summon Kagari out when we get to it with Ray so they can't revive it and then grab back a spell. So keep that in mind. Next, we have Afterburners, which is the exact reversal of Jamming Waves. Target a monster on the field, destroy it. Then, if you have 3 or more spells in the grave, non-target, blow up a spell or trap. Again, like I said before, to play with Jamming Waves, you could also do if they have like an untargetable spell or trap for some reason. Shark Cannons is basically a quick play spell that can DD Crow a card out of the graveyard. And if you have 3 or more spells, target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon. So it can DD Crow 1 out of their graveyard, and if you have 3 or more spells, you can special summon their monster, but it cannot attack. But you can activate its effects. This is very good against like Zombie, because if you go up against like Balderrock Zombie, or like Zombie the Fleur, then you can revive their Balderrock and still use its effects, and then link it off later. So it can inherently give you disruption. Very, very broken. And then we have, at last, Eagle Booster. This card's really, really powerful. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, target 1 monster on your field, and it's unaffected by card effects except its own. And if you have 3 or more spells in the graveyard, it cannot be destroyed in battle this turn. So you can basically make one of your Sky Striker aces, like a Towers, unaffected, and it cannot be destroyed in battle, making it very hard for your opponent to kill you. Now, the extra deck, I'm not going to really go over Nightmare, Unicorn, and Phoenix. We're just going to talk about the ace monsters. So Kagari, on special summon, can add any Sky Striker spell from graveyard to hand. Very, very good. And then gains 100 attack for each spell in your graveyard. So again, on summon, it's any Sky Striker spell, engage, Widow Anchor, you name it, from grave to hand, and then gains 100 attack for each spell in the grave. And that will add up the longer it gets in the duel, as well as our skill, which I'll talk about later on. Next, we play 3 Sky Striker Ace Shizuku. If you don't have 3, 2 is fine. You can get away with 2 Ray, 2 Shizuku, you'll be okay. And monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack for each spell in the grave. Once per turn during the end phase, if discard with special summon, you can add 1 Sky Striker spell from your deck to your hand with a different name than those in the graveyard. So very good. And all of your aces can only be special summoned once per turn. So for example, if I summon Shizuku, I can't summon it again that turn. Next, we run Hayate, basically when this inflicts battle damage to your opponent, or if you, oh no, not battle damage. If this card battled, you can send any Sky Striker card from deck to graveyard, including another Ray if they need it, Rogue one, and you can send another Ray to graveyard as well, or any spell card. This card's a little bit less useful because we don't have a main phase too, but feel free to run it if you want to. I mean, not feel free to run it. Feel free to use it if you want, but like I said, a little bit less useful given that we don't have a main phase too. Kaina is really, really good because again, on summon, this prevents an opponent's monster from attacking. Targets one face-up monster for controls, get out of 10. And each time you activate a Sky Striker spell, gain 100 life points after resolution. Okay, with that being said, let's talk about the skill, and then we'll go on to some replays. Link Darkraze is our skill, so basically, this can only be used if your extra deck controls the Dark Link monster. Which we do, by the way, we have Unicorn. Gain 1500 life points at the start of the duel. Can be used once per turn during your main phase. Choose one face-up monster control. It gains 300 attack up to the end of the turn. But it also gains an additional 500 attack if there's a Dark monster and a Link monster on your field or in the graveyard. Or a Dark Link monster on the field or in the grave. We don't have Zeke, but we do have Ray. And we will always have a Link in the grave, so this can easily gain 800 attack and allow you to swing over anything. And then easily put you to 5,500 life at the start, which will help you grind out. Anyway, I also can make Hayate basically a 2-attack kill. That's also something you want to pay attention to. So if you want to, you can even do this. So 2 Shizuku, 2 Hayate. And run it like that if you want. Either way. Alright. Anyway. On to the replays. Well, apparently it will not let me save these replays. Well. Okay. Alright, well, unfortunately, I do not have replays for you guys, because it won't allow me to save them. However, we will do a Sky Striker cog climb. We were at a 90% win rate. I could show you the 90% win rate. But apparently, it will not allow me to save the replays after this, so there you go. I could show you the decks we did beat. We ended up taking out Star Seraph, which was very good. We ended up beating Duel Links, so 2 meta decks right off the bat. Sacred Beast, another deck that's on the tier list. Shiranui. The floor. So, quite a minute amount of competent decks that we did face. We ended up losing to my good friend Shadroni. We ended up not drawing as well there, so we ended up losing. But yeah, 9-game win streak with 90% win rate. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. I will leave the other video there because now I'm going to recommend you watch it because there are replays of Sky Striker gameplay. So, do watch that. I will put that in the description. And expect more DL content very shortly. As early as probably tomorrow. So, get ready. So, probably a Master Duel stream tonight. We're probably going to DL tomorrow. So, until next time, guys. Peace. Bye, YouTube.